大家好，我是文庆。那今天很开心呢，又可以在这边见到大家一起在这个平台上。那这边是台荷艺集的线上平台 Discord，在这个地方。那我们也很开心，今天有一个我们今天将会有邀请Matteo Marangoni 跟我们分享他对艺术的理念。那台荷艺集的线上平台3个，一个是开放工作室、艺术家实战守则跟共享工具。那今天呢是艺术家实战守则。今天的活动呢，我们会是以英文进行。那如果说你们有任何的问题呢，都可以放在PANT Stream 文字区里面。那我大概先介绍一下 Matteo。Matteo Marangoni III 的总监。那 III 它全名就是 Instruments Inventors Initiative， 它是设立于荷兰海牙，聚焦于当代表演艺术跨领域，包含了视觉艺术啊、新音乐、剧场、形体科技。那2020年 III 也获得创业产业基金 Creative Fund 的 Digital Culture 数位文化项目的4年常态补助。那 Matteo 他本身也是一位声音和多媒体艺术家，他的作品通常都会制造不同的乐器来探讨所在环境间的。那除了创作之外呢，他策划了许多跟声音相关的展览，例如在荷兰每年11月在 Den Bosch 的 November Music 也都有他的展览，他所策划的展览。那 Matteo 他是从他的故乡是在意大利的，几年前他搬到荷兰，在海牙的皇家艺术学院艺术科学学系 Science 念完后呢，他就继续留在荷兰创作。那他对于艺术家在这个环境找到真的，今天他会分享对艺术理念呢，还有他走到今天的坚持。那我们接下来我就会开始换，我们会把那个时间交给 Matteo， 所以请大家记得，在今天的活动里面呢，开放的发问，那中间如果他在讲的当下有问题，可以放文字区里面，那我们会把它整理出来的。Okay, so today we are really happy to have Matteo with us. So Matteo will first share his work, and then we will have questions and things happening. So Matteo, how you feel today? Matteo, your microphone is mute.
Yes, hello.
Okay.
Thanks, Wenchin, for the introduction and for inviting me. Maybe I can't see who is attending the event today, but maybe we've seen each other at the PANT public events at I am usually behind the bar. So nice to see you again here. How do you want to do this? Do you have some questions for me, or shall I freewheel?
Yeah. Maybe I think it's nice everyone knows a bit about you, your work, and then as an artist.
Okay. Well, I come from Florence, where I did my first studies, and then I came to the Netherlands, to The Hague, to do my master in art science. And since then, I have my practice here in The Hague as an artist. I'm interested in sound and technology, and I create experiences that connect listening to space and to machines. Also, I am one of the founders of IAI, which is an organization active here promoting our field of art science and technology.
Thank you. So maybe because you talk about your work with this spatial experience and instrument, do you want to maybe show a little bit example for people to understand? So also, what is art science?
Okay, sure. I can show a little bit of my portfolio, and which is in this bigger field of art science. Of course, there's many other approaches. I guess my interest is really the connection between the research into science and technology, but then also how we experience it with the senses. And this is, I think, where as an artist, our focus is on sensory experience. But let's say when I was studying in Florence, a lot of the education, the learning was about learning how other artists did things in the past. And what I'm really excited about the field of art science is that instead of learning from examples of past artists, we can learn from examples of what is happening in other worlds outside of the arts, in science and research and technology and so forth. And then try to see what can I do with this technique, what I can do with this information to make an experience that involves our senses. So I'm going to share my screen. So my background before coming to the field of art science was in music and music technology. When I came to do my master, I was interested in the question of sound specialization and how to compose music in space, which is a question that is often asked in the field of electroacoustic music and contemporary music. And often in this field, you will hear concerts of electronic music using a multi-channel system. So the audience is surrounded by speakers, and the composer is moving the sounds in the space. I was interested in the question: what if we move the speaker instead of moving the sound between the speakers? So I made these during my studies. I made this pair of robots. And I created a robotic opera ballet, as I call it, for these two performers. I can show you. I'm not going to play the sound for you, but you can look at the sped up choreography. This is 20 times faster than the actual performance. And what I'm doing here is I'm using these two robots as sound projectors, and they are echolocating. This is what some animals do, for example, bats, dolphins, and also some humans can learn how to do this. It's a technique that is being learned in some communities of blind people. By making short clicks, you can hear the echo of the click and get an impression of the space around you. And this is what these two robots are doing while they're dancing. They are creating these very detailed spatial images of the surrounding architecture. Of course, here I do it with let's say, a more relatively high-tech approach. But it's something, if you want to practice it, you can also practice it sometimes with something as simple as these two little balls walking around and listening to how clicks echo back from the buildings. So this was the project I did during my master, and then I continued developing afterwards. From this project, I then connected to another member of IAI, which also had an interest in immersive experiences using robotics, and we made a swarm of little creatures called Lampiridae. Lampiridae means firefly in Latin. And these little creatures, they can listen and they can respond with sound. I can play a little here. There's also a little bit of sound. So here there's about 70 of these creatures in this very resonant reverberant space. And then from trying to develop the emergent behavior of this form, I started to with Dieter, work on algorithms of imitation and variation, what you hear in this video with just 3 of these creatures. So in this little exercise, what I found really, what was really exciting for me was that we made this simple behavior where a creature would listen and then repeat what it heard. And if you put 2 together, the conversation is not very interesting because they tend to get stuck in just the same loop. But when you add a 3rd one, then one creature starts adding together what it hears from the other 2, and then by that process, the new patterns start to grow and emerge. So then of course the question is, how do you then translate this behavior? That is not difficult to create on a small group, but to a bigger, let's say a bigger group of individuals. And the next project that Dieter and I are working on at the moment, it's related to this, but now we are also creating a relationship between these artificial creatures and the environment. And the project is called Komorebi, which in Japanese means the sun filtered through the leaves of trees. And this is a project which responds to the question, how can I translate into music the patterns that you see in a forest of sunlight? So when you walk in a forest and on a sunny day, you will see the shadows of the trees moving and creating these beautiful patterns all around. How can we transform this visual image into a spatial sound experience? I'm going to play a video. So what we made here is a kit which we released with II this last spring, also as a response to the lockdown. And it was a way we could send through the mail, we could send these kits to people, and people could experience our work in their own homes or outdoors. And this little kit is a version of Komorebi that works as a single unit. It just responds to variations in light, and it's basically an instrument that reacts to light, but it's designed to specifically react to the changes in light that happen when it's placed under a tree moving in the wind. We're now working on the next version of this project, which will be it's scheduled to be premiered on the island of Vlieland in the Netherlands at the beginning of September. Here you can see the body of this creature, the design, and here you can see how it looks in a natural setting. So we have these horns which are casted to reflect the light also in an interesting way, so that the visual experience is also like the sound experience, reacting to the changes in sunlight. These are a few of my projects that I wanted to show you. Now I can stop sharing the screen. Let's see.
Yeah, thank you, Matteo. Yeah, it's very interesting to see all this project. And for me, I know maybe some also have questions, and then it's really okay, because maybe if you have an urgent question you want to ask, you can unmute your microphone and just ask anything related to Matteo's work. And for me, I have one question, really, like, with all your instruments and the way you develop that, a lot of them imitate human, imitate creature behavior, imitates also puts another electronic things like already in the nature. So is there anything you feel like you don't want a human factor in your concept, and that's what do you find, why you want to make all these creature which imitates?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Well, the human factor, I mean, maybe it's actually the other way around. I'm really interested in our relationships. Of course, as humans, we don't exist separate from technology. That's one of the definitions of being human, is we make tools, we make instruments, and humans everywhere, they do this. And but somehow it happened, at least when I was growing up, this idea that technology is something different from us. It's something coming from outside, and there's some maybe reasons for that. Partly education, partly how the world works in terms of import and export of knowledge, of science and technology. That some places have innovate and produce these technologies, and some places they import it. But for me, it's really important that to have the feeling that these machines that we have, they are something that I can create. I can have a relationship more as an equal. They're not either, because otherwise you're either forced to use a machine or to live with a machine that you maybe don't like. So there's a lot of people unhappy about, you can see it, let's say, I don't know, with Google or Facebook, or for many good reasons. And then you also can be, on the other hand, unhappy because you would like something to be there that doesn't exist, but you feel powerless to create it. And why? There's no reason. You can try. It's not true that you cannot make things because you don't have the knowledge. You can teach yourself. You can learn, And you can, when I came here, I never made a robot before. I thought it's impossible. I didn't study engineering and all of these things and programming, and how can I do it? But it's the big difference for me was in my previous education, it was a lot about what I cannot do, and now here I came here and it was just try.
So you think like in Holland with the education here, you really stimulate you with the do it yourself. So what you want, you just try to find out what you can achieve, basically.
Yeah, and then maybe important, the machines, we think of them also just like when we think about the word instrument or tool, we think of something which is purely there because we want something. I want to let's say work, spend less hours doing cleaning, so we invent a vacuum cleaner or something like that, and then the vacuum cleaner keeps our floor clean, and that's what we want from it. But we forget sometimes to think, what does the machine want from us? What does the machine? Because the machine does something for us. What can we do for the machine? The machine is also an organism, and then we think, well. It's not my job. There's a tech maintenance person to do this, but it's then we become dependent on. Let's say my refrigerator broke the other day, and the company in Korea who makes this refrigerator doesn't want to fix it anymore. The refrigerator served me for many years. Why am I not able to do something for the refrigerator? Instead of just throwing it away and polluting more, it's just that maybe it's just a little chip like this that needs to be changed, and the rest is all fine. But we throw into a landfill a huge object because nobody is able to replace one little chip.
So you think with the instruments you create, because that's why you also give them a kind of their own will. For example, with Lampididae, they can communicate. So you create it, but you don't define what the creature has to be. So you give them freedom. Is that what's in your when you are creating new instruments? Is that part of it? You also give kind of freedom for the instruments you made.
Well, Lampididae and Komorebi, they are autonomous creatures, so they, of course, they get a behavior which is a program. So their behavior is defined by that program which we write, but it's not. They're not performing a precise series of predetermined instructions in the way that you would say, like a pianist would play a score from a 19th century European composer. And sometimes that can be also very frustrating because we imagine something beautiful coming out of this, and then it's actually not interesting, and then you think, oh, why aren't our children doing what we wanted them to do? But they have a different will of their own, and they're doing something else.
Okay. Is anyone have any urgent question you want to ask at this moment? Yeah, I see someone unmute. Owen. Owen, is that you want to ask some questions or? Okay, no.
Matteo, is this creatures also part of Lampididae, or that's other project? The last you showed.
It's called Komorebi. Yeah, so it's a new creature, but it's a continuation of what we started with Lampididae. Yeah, the same research.
Yeah. Will you mix these two creatures together?
Maybe sometimes sometimes we have done this before to mix different projects. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just so impressed by how organic the dialogue they create, the sound of these three. Yeah. What
That's
is the
also your choice, right?
Yeah. Wenjing, what did you
That's
say?
why you. Yeah, I was also curious because when you programming that, you have thousands of choice. what you can put in as a sound, and why you choose this type of sound, and a bit like a music box or a bit dreamy in that.
You mean these clicks that the Lampiri?
Yeah.
Well, it was partly because of I've been working a lot with echolocation before, with so you didn't hear the echo moire, but the sound that they make it's also ticks. And I like to listen to the echo. So when I'm thinking about this swarm, it's also a spatial piece. It's less about the echo of the architecture, but the echo between them. So it's for us, it's very clear to listen to these short sounds as they bounce around in the space. So when you have many, one can start, and then the other will respond over there, and then over there, and you can keep track of this movement. And it's easy to do with these very short sounds for us, but it's also easy in the Lampiride. In the case of the Lampiride, we were using a quite simple microcontroller, which is the Atmega 328 that you find in Arduinos. It's famous because of Arduino, and then it doesn't have much. It's not very powerful. So also on the cognitive capacity of this creature is limited, and it's also easier for this creature to clearly understand a sound that is just an impulse. It doesn't have to keep track of duration.
Yeah.
And what is the
okay.
largest scale of this exposition of this work? Like how many, the largest number, have you ever?
We have 70 Lampiride, and we're making 100 Komorebis.
Wow, amazing.
It's a very frustrating or annoying quantity to work with, because it's not let's say when you're doing a lot of the techniques we use, they come from prototyping. So in an industrial process, you make a first unit of something, and you try to make a first model. This is it's called a prototype, and there are techniques that are fast and easy to do that. But then in an industrial process, then you pass this on to the factory, and then they start making hundreds of thousands of that thing. But making 100 of something, then you have to do that basically 100 prototypes by hand, and that's quite a lot of work. Yeah. But it's what's necessary to.
So yeah. So we just also you just talk about your work, and then I want to also from your work, for example, with Echo Moire. That's the work when you graduated with in 2012, and in that time when you graduate and you find that work, it's a bit difficult to push to a festival, to other events, and then from that you start the organizing III, the Instrument Inventor Initiative, new type of instruments. So can you now talk a little bit about, is that after you graduate, you feel there's no markets for your work, and then what's the reason you want to start III, an artist organization?
Well, yes. So I had a fantastic time during my studies, and I really wanted to continue doing this kind of research. But then after graduating, I saw that there's not that many possibilities. That a lot of artists also that graduated before me, or my colleagues, fellow students, were all having similar issues, and then having to find other ways to make a living. And basically, yeah, the art science research is interesting to develop, but then you have to make something more conventional or within a more established kind of discipline, whether it's in theater or teaching or things like that, or developing commercial apps for phones and so forth. But I thought this work is amazing. I love to do it, but I also love to experience it, and I think it's very special. And I think there's more people who might feel the same way, who want to know about these things, want to experience this kind of works. So we need to work to develop this field and make more possibilities for artists to make a living with it, and also for audiences to come in contact.
So that's the reason you want to start an organization. So with artists who do similar work for the sensory experience and that. And was it difficult when you started?
Yeah, what is difficult? If it's not difficult, it's not interesting. So yes, of course. And there we in the Netherlands, there's a long history of this, which is also why I ended up here, which is obviously not the case in every country. But it was a bit unfortunate that when I and the other founders of II, we were graduating, it happened that the government cut the budget for most of this kind of research and experimentation. And the organizations that were there for 20 years or more were closing or were reducing their activities by a big amount, and there wasn't space for us there. So there wasn't space for us in the institutions in the Netherlands. There wasn't space for us so much outside of the Netherlands, because there isn't this so much of this happening, and let's say in the countries where we came from, so what to do? Try to work together and make something happen.
And I have another question, because when you are doing your own projects and you are also the organizer, you're also curator. With all this, like, I'm just curious, how many hours per week you work on all of that? Do you have a good balance between that? How can you balance that?
The balance, well, there's two kind of balances. There's the balance between my individual work and the organizational work that I do, and then there's what they call work-life balance. And the second one is not a solved issue yet, but I don't mind. In the past, when we started, I was just working all the time, and I enjoyed that. And it's still sometimes the case. The balance between personal work and the work for the community, that's something quite for me more important to get right. And it's not easy for some people who have, for example, a teaching practice. It can be similar to how much time you dedicate to your pupils and how much time you dedicate to your own artistic work. On one side, it's great that to not always focus only on yourself, and to put your perspective outwards and look at the work of other people and how you can help that. And you also learn a lot from that. But I know that a lot of people who have the vocation to help others, we tend to put others before ourselves. So we said, well, first I have to help you because you're asking me, and then I get requests from people that want help constantly, and then I think, oh, I need to help this person, I need to help this person, I need to help this person. But that, if you don't learn how to also sometimes say no, and say no, now it's my time, it's for my things, then it eventually drains your generosity, and it drains your capacity to help other people. So that time that you spend in yourself and developing yourself and refreshing your curiosity, and that's I think really important. Also, then to be able to go and help other people. Yeah. So that's the constant negotiation.
Yeah. And I have another question, because II starts as an artist organization. So it was just artists there, and then they develop new projects and they present projects. And through all this year, II become more a kind of an institution. So so it gets bigger, so more connect to also the artist residency exchange, for a chance for new artists. So all this, the change from IAI until now, and then how do you feel? And then do you think IAI, what's the influence from IAI? What do you want to achieve? Is there any idea IAI as an artist organization? What will be the influence in the future?
Well, I think what we want to achieve is the same from the beginning, and there's many ways that we can do this, and many ways in which we are trying to do that. But it's this basic question. There is this a new field of art science, and which has a lot of potential for growth. And how can we support that growth? How can we make it develop so that in the future there will be more places to experience this kind of work, more possibilities to develop this kind of work. And the program and the activities that we do are all in response to needs from our community of things that are necessary to achieve this, or we feel are necessary. And so, for example, we have artist studios because artists need studios to make work, and they need studios which are different from, say, a painter studio or a piano studio. So what kind of studio is needed, and then we try to create that. And we do residencies, which are also to stimulate and support creation of new work, and we have an agency which is distributing this kind of work and trying to create connections with all kinds of presentation platforms that are open to this sort of experimentation.
Okay. So yeah, I have two last questions, and then I think this we can be open if anyone have other questions. So my two questions will be, I know I this year I start a research grant for the graduate student from the Arts Academy in Den Haag, and so I think I also very curious and care about all the new graduate students. So do you have any advice for the fresh graduate students from the art school? And the second question is what advice also you will give for someone want to start an artist organization? So first, the new graduate.
Well, yeah, of course, we all came out of we started AI as we spoke about as fresh graduates. So that is something still like everybody I work with, I either met in school or I started working with right after they graduated. So that's really the core of our organization, and especially in the last year and a half, I felt really strongly for the difficulties of the students who are not having the same opportunities because of the pandemic. It's such a special moment in life that you get the chance to go and dedicate some years to your own personal growth as an artist, and then the world is not ready to receive you because of this health crisis. So I'm very happy that this year the Art Academy allowed us to give an award to one graduate. But that's just a small thing. There's only many more things that we can do for fresh graduates who want to connect to our organization and be involved. In terms of advice, what was important for me was when I graduated actually to have a lot of time. So I think time is the most important resource that you have to keep for yourself to develop your work and your practice, both in terms of the creative part, but also the business part. How do you manage to make a living with it? And the typical thing of coming out of the academy and then looking for a job is I find it a bit dangerous, because then it tends to be too much of a distraction. So if better to find a way to live with very few resources if possible, and focus on your practice rather than making money. And the other thing, starting an organization. yeah, for us it was a kind of natural process of we have a need in common. There's a group of people who are interested in finding a solution for this need. And so how do you identify one or more needs and people who are willing and also able to work on that, and choose the people you will work with.
Yeah,
And everything else
you.
comes from that. Sometimes there's questions like, yeah, how do I get the funding? Well, the funding is a question for later. First, you need to know what you need and who needs that and who are you going to work with to satisfy that question.
Because to get funding, it's always a lot of the big question for a lot of people. But it's a process. You have to start doing that, and then you learn in the process. So, thanks, Matteo, for the sharing. And I don't know if anyone have any question at this moment. You can just unmute your microphone and then ask. And also, one of the instruments, komorebi, Matteo was talking about, I put the link also in PANT stream. That's also first, you can just buy it. So if you're really curious to play that around, you can just order it and you can find it there. So any questions? Anyone?
Yes, hi.
Sarah.
I'm Sarah. I am just curious that because you mentioned that you don't have the prior experience on how to make a robot before you step into this. So I'm just curious when you are trying to approach new things, and I believe there will be thousands of like kind of technologies or field you will be interested. So how you'll be kind of like prioritize the things you wanted to learn first. At this, that's for my cases, like because now I am learning how to use Arduino for myself. But I do realize that when I step into this new technologies and I find out that this technology is close related to another technology, so it makes me wanting to learn at all the same times, but I do understand that it's kind of impossible to do this. So I'm just curious how you first approach this.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. That there's not an answer really, but I think that curiosity that I think we both share is that's a great drive, and to keep it. The most important thing is to keep that alive, and just keep learning. And always, for me, like every project is just an opportunity to learn. And but how do you prioritize what you're going to learn? That's very important. So I guess normally I have a certain idea in mind of what I want to achieve, and then I look at examples I can find around. Okay, so and then for example, just you go on YouTube and you know Google that technology or that you're interested in, and then you find, okay, somebody is doing something with this thing that looks like what I have in mind from my thing, and then I have to learn that. You know, like lately I was looking, how do I paint the pieces of my new komorebis in a certain way. And then I was looking, I have this double bass over there, which I learned to play a long time ago. And then I was thinking, oh, the paint maybe should look like the double bass, but how do you paint the double bass? I talked to some luthiers, and then I think, yeah, but I don't have 10 years to learn how to paint it the way. I just have a month. So how I don't really need it to be as double bass, because it doesn't need to sound like that. It just needs to look like that. And then it's a process of reduction. What do I actually really need to have what I want? And yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's
And try to keep it. I think it's also kind of budget management.
yeah.
To keep it within the resources that you have in terms of time and money, because a lot of things you don't have enough time to learn, or you don't have enough money to buy. So then you just say, okay, well, I can't do this. So, but this I can.
So okay, so this Great. My video finally working. Okay. So this brings back to the question when it comes to you said that the budget is also important to do the project. So I don't know. Would you feel like the same thing is that you eager to create to pursue the perfections, but the budget sometimes kind of limit you. So how do you kind of like deal with this situation and to find the solutions between the budgets and your dream?
Well, I mean, normally, let's say what I don't know if you think the same, but there's this idea that the greatest artists are those who can create something out of nothing. It's like this magic. It's almost physically impossible. So I think I have a lot of admiration when I see a work which is not using a lot of material, but doing a lot with that little amount of material. And I think this is a really good thing to keep in mind when of course you want certain perfection, but the perfection doesn't necessarily need to. The perfection is within the resources that you have.
Okay, so I do have another question. So when you're trying to do your own project, they will be sometimes you will have to collaborate with others. So, but at the same time, you wanted to learn new things by yourself. So how do you decided that which part of it you wanted to work with a professional or which part of it you wanted to do it by yourself?
Yeah, that has changed over time. Initially, let's say in Ekomore, I did almost everything by myself, mostly because that's what I wanted, but also because I didn't have any money to hire other people. And I actually, it's kind of still ideally my favorite way of working, because then you have really control, and that's like you're learning everything you're getting from the project, you're getting yourself in terms of the experience, the learning. But later, yeah, now not as a student, but as a professional, I have deadlines and I have to deliver the project in a certain time limit, and I can't, and this is not sufficient to do everything. It would take too much time. So then, yeah, I have to choose what I cannot do. And luckily, as a professional, I start having resources to where I can also hire other people to do to help with parts of the project. And then that's a whole other learning process, how to learn how to work with other people, and so that you still have control over the creative process, but you can delegate parts that are not essential to the work. Let's say, for example, Dieter and I worked a lot with what you saw, the new body of the Komorebi. It's relatively advanced for us in terms of manufacturing and getting this quality of result. We wouldn't be able to do it by ourselves, but still the image, the result that we had in mind was very clear. And the question is working with different people and pushing until that result was achievable. Yeah.
Okay, so this is pretty much my question. Thank you.
Thank you. There anyone have other questions? If you feel you want to more write it down, you can also write your question on the pen stream 文字区。
Well, it's two different jobs, but two different jobs that are closely interlinked and that feed and support each other. Yeah. So yeah, as I mentioned before, finding a balance between them is not easy, and there are also all sorts of questions that come up all the time, like a conflict of interest when you are when in one job, in one role you are supporting others, but or supporting a community, but you're also a part of that community. So navigating that space. But I guess it goes to also the core of what we look at IAI when we look at technology. So the reason why we have started to think of technology as something separate from art, something separate from the use of the experience, the use of the technology. It has to do with specialization. So as society gets more and more complex, historically, different people get assigned different roles, and we learn that oh, this is my role in the world. I do this, and you are doing that, and we don't mess with each other, you know. And it's the same approach to thinking. Well, hey, wait a minute. Does it have to be this way with technology and also with organization? Do some people have to be artists and some people have to be organizers? Why is that? What would be the benefits of doing this differently?
Matteo, can you share some teamwork experience amongst III? Because just like Yenting just said, like III's projects becoming more and more versatile, especially like now you also do a lot of community work in the community practice, this kind of stuff. Yeah. So I'm quite curious about like the II team, how you work with each other, this kind of story.
Well, when we started, we are an association of artists with members, and that's our core. And when we started, we would have one annual meeting, which would last the whole day, the whole day into the night. And it was also kind of based on a book that I read from the founder of Art Science. That was how they would do in Art Science. They would just have these endless meetings, and the point was not to have an end of the meeting, but to have a satisfying conclusion. So sort of the meeting goes on as long as there's things to talk about, and which was quite intense. So over time, yeah, people were always complaining about that. So later, also when we started to do more kind of other activities, which were not only for our own practices, we needed to change that, and we got a lot of input from when Marije Bouwman joined our board. Marije had a lot of experience with more teamwork, because teamwork is not something you learn as in art school. You just learn how to make art, you know, and Marije had a lot of experience with this, so she started organizing things better in terms of having shorter meetings with more focused agendas and so forth. And now actually, when Shin is in charge of those agendas. But currently with the team we have a team of 7 people who meet every Monday. We do a 1 hour update, and then there's the rest is ad hoc meetings for projects or topics that need to be addressed with only specific people. But in a week, usually two days of my week are absorbed just by meetings. That's how it goes. Yeah.
I participated like this yeah, you know, this artist survival guide organized by III maybe last year, right? Or a few
Yeah,
months ago, actually, the
last
whole
year.
lockdown last year. And I really think like teamwork could, if there's a next edition, teamwork could be a nice subject as well.
Oh yeah.
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 Yeah, because I think with the teamwork in the organization, it's really something you have to constantly reflect, is this working? So if it's not working, and the most important, the communication. So you don't, because with IAI, it's really organization. We try to have everyone is individual, and then everyone have the right to say, we don't try not to have this hierarchy in that. But you are not obligated to listen to someone says that if someone in charge, no, you can always argue with that, share your opinion. So the discussion part is very important, but how to make that also a safe environment, everything. We are also learning that. I think I from advice from outside, because I think sometimes for an organization that's also a nice thing to have a third person to observe what is happening and then give advice in the good time, and that can that can hopefully build the organization in a healthy way. That's yeah, what I feel. And is there any more questions?
Well, maybe I can, if you're not going too much over time, I can answer also this question of CEO. I think as an organization, the founding, I think it's always very important to have some founding ideas or principles that are guiding when deciding then on more details. And the founding principle in II is everybody who's in the organization is joining there because they want to grow in some way, and they think that they can grow by working with this group. And so everybody who joins has something they want to develop, and they are in charge of that development. But what we need to learn is how to cooperate in the best possible way, in order that each one of us can develop what we had in mind when we came to this group. And to do that, it's a question we want to have as clear as possible communication, to be very clear what we want to do and how we're going to do it and what we need from other people to do it, but also as little communication as possible, because we don't want to be the whole time having meetings, because the meetings are taking away time from actually doing things, and this is the big process of learning. Because if we're all the time communicating, we're not doing anything else. But if we don't communicate enough, then we lose track of each other and what we're actually doing together. So that's, I think, the main challenge.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we are. If not have more questions, then I think today this online PANT online we will finish here. And then I want to thank Matteo for sharing your experience, and then for Suyo also mentioned III also organized artist survival guide. So this artist survival guide is also helping you how to write project funding application, how to deal with tax, and also how to write your PR text on your website, how to do your PR for your work. So I will organize that again, I think the end of this year. So if anyone is interested in that, you can always find that on the IAI website, which I put in the Penstream 文字区. And there you can find all the information, and you can keep track if you would like to participate in the future for this survival guide. And yeah, so I also want to thank you, like with the PANT Online, it's supported by 国议会超译计划. So if there's no other questions, I think we are going to finish here. Yenting, is that okay? Okay. Yeah, CEO.
Actually, I don't really know exactly yet. Okay, I can share a bit in Mandarin, 中文。我讲中文吗？OK，下个月就是最后一个周末，就是应该是28号周六的时候，我们会有下一次的PANT Online，然后就是我们邀请到那个我的委员，他会来跟我们分享，就是他怎么样让他这个，因为我们知道快速会有读书会嘛，那只是说在疫情之间，他们也为了陪伴大家，就是做了很多不一样的活动，线上活动，例如说呢，我分享那个一个杨牧的在荷兰的出的一本诗集， 然后他请了荷兰译者，来跟大家做一个分享。我有就是一个算是用台语聊，就是 TED，就是苏伟全请他妈妈就是台语非常优雅，然后他请他妈妈来，我们大家一起看一个 TED 的演讲，就是关于人生如何的快乐等等的，然后大家用台语去聊自己对于这件事的想法。然后这两个线上 workshop， 它就是也是我们今天为什么会有这一系列的台的 online 的原因，因为我参加了这个，我就觉得说啊，我真的觉得很不知道，他给我这个灵感去做这一系列，觉得说我们艺术家也可以有一个对联的对参与的场景。那我想说，哎，其中这个探讨我们就可以邀请伟璇来讲一下他在荷兰，以他原本是记者的这个身份，那他现在就是在公司里面做是比较 communication 的工作。那他的工作还有他之前的角色，他的本业，那如何帮助到他现在在做的那种社群的最近的大概就是这样。天哪，好长哦！我刚刚就想说，我不知道怎么想，结果现在变这么长，酷。
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Matteo.
Yo, thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye
Thank you. Bye
bye.
bye.
再见。